Scarlett O'Hara is the daughter of a wealthy plantation owner in Georgia. She's beautiful, ambitious, and manipulative, used to getting what she wants. Scarlett is infatuated with Ashley Wilkes, who plans to marry his cousin, Melanie Hamilton. At a barbecue at Ashley's plantation, Scarlett confesses her love, but Ashley rejects her, declaring his loyalty to Melanie. At the same event, Scarlett meets Rhett Butler, a charming and rebellious outsider with a tarnished reputation. Rhett admires Scarlett's fiery spirit, though she dismisses him. Soon after, the Civil War begins, disrupting their idyllic Southern way of life. The war ravages the South, and Scarlett's world begins to crumble. She marries Melanie's brother, Charles, out of spite, but he dies early in the war, leaving Scarlett a widow. She moves to Atlanta, where she becomes close to Melanie, despite secretly resenting her. As the war intensifies, Scarlett and Melanie find themselves trapped in Atlanta during a Union siege. Scarlett delivers Melanie's baby and, in a moment of desperation, takes charge, leading them back to Tara. They find the plantation in ruins, with Scarlett's mother dead and her father mentally broken. Determined to rebuild Tara, Scarlett vows to never go hungry again. She becomes hardened and ruthless, using every means, including manipulation and deceit, to ensure her survival. Scarlett marries her sister's fiancé, Frank Kennedy, for his money, using his wealth to save Tara. Her business acumen flourishes as she exploits the Reconstruction economy, shocking society with her unladylike behavior. Meanwhile, Rhett remains in her orbit, amused by her defiance of social norms and deeply in love with her. After Frank's death, Scarlett finally marries Rhett. Their marriage is passionate but tumultuous, as both are stubborn and unwilling to fully trust each other. They have a daughter, Bonnie, whom Rhett adores, but their relationship becomes increasingly strained. Scarlett's selfishness and obsession with Ashley continue to drive a wedge between her and Rhett. Tragedy strikes when their daughter Bonnie dies in a riding accident. Overcome with grief, Rhett becomes distant, while Scarlett begins to realize that her love for Ashley was an illusion and that Rhett is the one she truly loves. However, it's too late. Rhett, disillusioned and weary, decides to leave Scarlett. In their final confrontation, she begs him to stay, but he delivers the iconic line, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Despite everything, Scarlett refuses to accept defeat. She decides to return to Tara, the one constant in her life, and vows to win Rhett back. Her final words encapsulate her indomitable spirit. After all, tomorrow is another day. Gone with the Wind is a tale of love, loss, and resilience. Scarlett O'Hara remains one of literature's most complex characters. A woman driven by survival, flawed yet unforgettable roots, is an epic, multi-generational saga that traces the lineage of Alex Haley's family, from the African village of Jafurah to their lives in the United States. It's a powerful exploration of identity, resilience, and the enduring spirit of survival amidst the horrors of slavery. The story begins in 1750 in Jafurah, a small village in the Gambia. Kunta Kinte, a young Mandinka boy, grows up in a close-knit community with rich traditions and a deep connection to his heritage. He dreams of becoming a respected man in his village, learning to hunt and embracing his cultural identity. At the age of 17, while gathering wood outside the village, Kunta is ambushed and captured by slave traders. Bound and shackled, he is forced onto a slave ship bound for America. The harrowing journey across the Atlantic, filled with suffering and death, marks the beginning of a generational ordeal. Kunta arrives in Annapolis, Maryland, where he is sold to a plantation owner and renamed Toby. He fiercely resists his new reality, attempting to escape multiple times despite brutal punishments. His captors mutilate him, severing part of his foot, to prevent further attempts. Despite the physical and emotional trauma, Kunta holds on to his identity, secretly passing his African heritage to his daughter, Kizzy. He teaches her words from his native language, stories of Jafurah, and the importance of remembering who she is. Kizzy grows up strong and intelligent, but her life takes a devastating turn when she is sold away from her family after helping a fellow slave escape. She ends up on a new plantation and is raped by her new owner, bearing a son named George. George, nicknamed Chicken George, for his skill with gamecocks, grows up to be resourceful and ambitious. While still enslaved, he manages to achieve a degree of independence and respect, dreaming of one day earning freedom for himself and his family. As the generations pass, the family endures the relentless brutality of slavery, yet they remain resilient. The Civil War brings hope and change. Chicken George fights for the Union Army and eventually secures freedom for his descendants. The family's journey continues through Reconstruction and beyond, as they navigate systemic racism, poverty, and oppression. Through it all, the oral history of their African roots passed down from Kunta to his descendants remains a source of strength and pride. In the 20th century, Alex Haley pieces together his family's story, tracing his ancestry back to Kunta, Kent, and Jufure. Through extensive research and oral traditions, he honors the resilience and sacrifices of his ancestors. Roots is more than a family history. It's a profound narrative of survival, identity, and the enduring quest for freedom. It reminds us of the importance of remembering where we come from and the strength that lies in our roots. A People's History of the United States, by Howard Zinn, re-examines American history through the lens of marginalized groups, Native Americans, African Americans, women, laborers, and others whose voices have often been ignored. Zinn challenges traditional narratives, presenting an unflinching look at the struggles for justice, equality, and democracy. The story begins in 1492 with Christopher Columbus's arrival in the Americas. Zinn details the devastating impact of colonization on Native American populations, highlighting the exploitation, violence, and systemic erasure that followed. Through first-hand accounts like Bartolomé de las Casas, Zinn exposes the atrocities committed by European settlers and the enslaving of indigenous people to serve colonial economies. This sets the stage for a recurring theme: the pursuit of profit at the expense of human lives. Zinn examines the institution of slavery as a foundation for the American economy. African slaves were forcibly brought to the colonies, enduring unimaginable suffering to fuel agricultural and industrial growth. Zinn emphasizes resistance, the stories of rebellions, uprisings, and the resilience of enslaved people who fought for their dignity. Figures like Nat Turner and Frederick Douglass stand as symbols of courage in the face of oppression. The American Revolution, often celebrated as a fight for liberty, is re-examined. Zinn questions whether the revolution truly served the interests of all Americans or primarily benefited wealthy landowners and merchants. The Constitution, while heralded as a triumph of democracy, excluded women, enslaved individuals, and the poor. This disparity laid the groundwork for future struggles over civil rights and equality. With the rise of industrialization in the 19th and early 20th centuries, Zinn explores the exploitation of workers in factories and mines. Immigrants, children, and laborers endured harsh conditions for meager wages. The narrative shifts to the labor movements, where workers organized strikes and unions to demand better conditions. Events like the Haymarket Affair and the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire highlight both the cost of progress and the resilience of the working class. Zinn critiques America's involvement in wars, arguing they often served corporate and political interests rather than democratic ideals. From the Spanish-American War to Vietnam, he details the impact of militarism on soldiers, civilians, and dissenters at home. The civil rights movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and grassroots activists, takes center stage as a pivotal fight against systemic racism and segregation. Zinn also sheds light on women's suffrage, the feminist movement, and LGBTQ struggles for equality. The book concludes with a call to action. Zinn argues that real change comes from ordinary people banding together to challenge injustice, from abolitionists and suffragists to civil rights activists and modern-day movements. Zinn leaves us with hope. History is not static, and every generation has the power to reshape the world. A People's History of the United States reminds us that progress is achieved through resistance, solidarity, and the courage to question authority. Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand is a monumental novel that explores the clash between individualism and collectivism. Set in a dystopian United States, it tells the story of visionary industrialists fighting against a society that vilifies success and innovation. At its core, it's a philosophical defense of reason, capitalism, and self-interest. The story begins in a